best places we have in the Bible to teach us how to disagree like a Christian comes from Romans 14. Romans 14, Paul is encouraging a church who is teetering on the edge of division. And they're dividing over issues that should not divide a church. We've already said that there are certain issues that are worth dividing churches over. There are issues that are worth dying for. But here in the Roman church, there's divisions that are popping up over matters that simply should be decided on or maybe debated for, but certainly shouldn't lead to division. So Paul calls on the stronger Christians, the more mature Christians in the church, and he tells them this: welcome those who are weak in faith, but not to quarrel over opinions. And that word is very important, opinions. This is what Paul is talking about in Romans 14. There are these issues that are going on in the church are just matters of opinion. These are issues that we would decide on and maybe debate for. These are the issues where the Bible is less clear and more ambiguous. In the instance here in the Roman church, it's issues regarding around food and what holy days you should keep, whether or not you ought to obey the Sabbath. And Paul in verse 5 simply says, each one should be fully convinced in his own mind. These are issues where everyone should they should be following their conscience as they are thinking about how to relate to different foods that should be eaten or days to be celebrated. Now, Paul, even though he says that each one should be fully decided in his own mind, this does not mean that Paul doesn't have his own opinion. Paul actually believes that one view is more accurate than the other, and he sides with the stronger, more mature Christians on their view of food and holy days. But there's something more important to Paul than having the right opinion. This is really critical. In matters that are less important, down in the decide and maybe the debate category, what's more important is helping our weaker brothers and sisters learn to follow their conscience. In verses 6 through 9, Paul simply says what's more important is that people are following their conscience, their convictions, in honor of the Lord. And in verse 23, he tells us that what's most important is that we are acting out of faith. So even if you have a wrong opinion on these matters of decide or debate, what matters more for Paul is that you are acting that wrong opinion in honor of the Lord. So let's say, hypothetically, a Christian believes that it is always wrong for any Christian to drink alcohol. I would say that I don't think the Bible teaches that. I would say that the Bible does very clearly teach that drunkenness is a sin, and so any time that you are getting drunk, you are sinning. But then to extrapolate out of that Christians should never drink alcohol, I think is unwarranted. However, if I'm talking with someone and they are strongly convinced of that, what I want to do is I want to encourage them to obey their conscience. And I'm going to caution them against requiring other people to abide by their conscience, but they should, out of a desire to honor the Lord, as we talked about how the Bible speaks on everything, and everything we are to do is to do to the glory of God, as 1 Corinthians 10:31 tells us. I'm going to encourage that weaker Christian to follow their conscience. That's what's most important to Paul. And in Romans 14, that conclusion, that perspective leads us to an obligation. Those who are more mature in Christ, Paul tells us in Romans 15:1, we who are strong have an obligation to bear with the failings of the weak and not to please ourselves.